Hey everybody, this is Nori from Smart Service, and today we're going to be taking a look at the latest and greatest features coming to you guys in version 105. Let's head over to Smart Service and take a look at what we got today. Alright, so the first thing we're going to take a look at here is a feature that I personally am very excited to show off, and that's going to be our new waiting list. So a lot of folks currently, I'm sure including yourself, use the waiting list to store jobs where you're not really sure when you can go out there, or waiting on something, waiting on some parts to come in or something like that. There's something holding us back from doing the job. Well, we've seen a lot of people using this waiting list feature, and we wanted to give you guys a little bit more customization, a little bit more options to make it more convenient and streamlined for you. So let's go ahead and head over to Smart Service here. Let's take a look at what we got on the screen. One big change for existing users of Smart Service is that there's no longer a waiting list button at the top of the screen. You now have this blue bar, and it'll match whatever system colors you guys chose in your settings. But you have this bar down here, and if you click on that, that'll open up your waiting list. So, right away you can see some differences, I'm sure, here with our new waiting list design. First off, directly under the waiting list, we have a button on the far left-hand side that will let you grab it, and you can move the waiting list up and down. So no more grabbing that fine little gray line that was above the waiting list. Now you can go ahead and use that function to move your waiting list up and down the screen. Furthermore, on the left-hand side, we've got the work orders and proposals section. So one big thing that we heard customers talking about, especially if you have sales reps or someone like that out in the field, is you want the ability to separate your work orders from your estimates. So now in here, we've got a tab for work orders, and if I click over to the estimates tab, you see we have a completely different set. So this way your sales reps can look at one side, you can look at the other side. Should make things easier when you're trying to determine, what's something that we can do for work, what's something that we need to just go out there and estimate for the customer. Another great thing in here for either of these tabs, and you notice that the columns that I have for proposals versus my work orders are different, and that's because on the far right hand side we have a column customizer. Those of you who have used contact search before might recognize this feature. It allows you to customize the columns that are displayed on your screen. Well, we've got one of those for the waiting list now. So in here, you see I can choose what columns I'm going to see, and it works just like that one from the contact search tab. I can move things in and out, and I can move items up and down. This way you guys can design the waiting list the way that's going to be most beneficial for your business, and better yet, this feature is a per user feature. So if you set it up your way, the other rest of the office, they don't get bothered by it. They can set it up their own way. So each user can have their own custom view of these waiting list sections. Another very exciting feature I'd like to roll out for everybody as well is going to be this new added to waiting list column here. So this column is going to be an audit that tracks when you added the job to the waiting list. There's not going to be any more of the, did I add this yesterday? Did someone else at work add this last week, and maybe we should probably follow up with the customer by now. We don't have to deal with that anymore because of this column. If I go into one of these services, and we head over to the scheduling tab, when I place this job on the waiting list, as usual, it'll ask me if I want to remove it from the calendar, and I'll say yes. But you'll notice not only do we have our added to waiting list and the reason for why, so let's say waiting on parts, but we also have an added to waiting list audit for today when I added that job. This way, if I save this and go back to the waiting list, we can not only see that this job has been added to the waiting list, but we can see when we added it to the waiting list. And that's going to be helpful to determine, has it been a week since I followed up with this customer? Is our PO possibly running late? So now I can see how long an item has been sitting there. And of course, as with the previous version of the waiting list, if you click on these little arrows or the column names themselves, that'll let you go ahead and sort the waiting list. So you've got some options there for sorting, however you'd like, and of course a date function if you want to see, what's been on there for a long time or something similar. And lastly, before we leave the waiting list section here, I did want to reiterate for folks who are new or haven't used the waiting list in a while, waiting list is a pretty cool function. Like I said earlier, it'll let you store jobs that we can't quite schedule yet. Now, the way you would still use this is the same as you've always used it. When you're ready to move something from the waiting list over to the calendar, all you need to do is click and drag to pick out a date, time, and person. Right-click your selection on the waiting list and say Move from waiting list to selected time. That'll move the item to the space that you wanted, so there it is. And any job that's on the calendar that you want to move to the waiting list, you have the ability to right-click on that job, and there's a Move to Waiting List option here. So you can do it from within the job, or you can do it from here, and that'll put your item on as well. and it'll still leave that nice little audit for you so you know when it was added to the waiting list. Alright, so next up on our list is going to be a great feature for those of you who are doing job costing but do need to schedule and dispatch your estimates to the field, maybe to collect measures or just see what's going on to give us a better idea. So, one long-time thing with Smart Service is that our estimates don't go to QuickBooks, as you know. If you perform an estimate in Smart Service, it stays in Smart Service until you convert it over into an actual work order for a customer. Well, with this new version of Smart Service here, if I head into my Settings tab, I've got a brand new option for you under our estimates. And that's this option here that says create QuickBooks estimate when converting proposal. So of course mine says proposal, yours may say something different. That's really dependent on what terminology you chose here. You might have chose something different, but you'll have the same function in the same place. Now I can set this up to either always, as in yes, always convert my Smart Service estimate into a QuickBooks estimate. I have the option to say no if this isn't a feature I really need, or it can even ask me. So I chose ask here because some of my jobs, the little things I don't really need a estimate in QuickBooks for, but larger jobs, installs and stuff like that, I want to send my guys out there, have them do the measure, come back, and then what'll happen here, if I grab one of my estimates, let's over here to the Office tab and take one of the estimates our field has done. When I come into that estimate and I want to go ahead and convert this to a customer job at the bottom of my screen, it'll ask me for the name, and I'll say the name is fine. It'll ask me if I want to make this inactive, which we don't need the proposal anymore, so I can. But now it'll also ask me if I want to create this estimate in QuickBooks. So if I go ahead and hit yes on this, it's going to take any items that I've added to the Smart Service estimate and put them on an estimate for the same job in QuickBooks for me. That will allow me to do job costing once I make the invoice and finish the service. So definitely a great feature for anyone who wants to track, what you estimated the job would be versus what you actually spent. We can go ahead and hit yes on this, and it'll go ahead and create that estimate in QuickBooks when we convert it into a Smart Service job. Okay, so the next thing that's coming out in this version here, for those of you who are using our credit card processing, we've expanded the features that are available for you here. For those of you who didn't know we had credit card processing or haven't taken a look at it yet, you definitely should. One, you want to keep everything that you do in the same system. We can offer that same great convenience that we offer with Smart Service for scheduling, dispatching your jobs, to also allow your technicians or your office to collect payment on those jobs. Why have many systems when you can get everything all in one? Secondly, if you have a credit card processor already, not only can we meet your existing credit card processing rates, but we can probably beat them too. So definitely give us a call or visit us at smartservice.com/payments for more information. So before we get started in this feature, let's take a little bit to discuss what a hosted payment page actually does and why this is convenient for customers. So first off, a hosted payment page is really a website where your customers can go to pay. They don't have to give you their credit card information directly. You don't have to type it in for them in front of them. You can send this invoice or work order to them, and they can click one single button. It'll open up their web browser. It'll let them type in their number, see how much they owe, and go ahead and process that from the convenience of their own home. And of course, with all Smart Service payments, everything is encrypted and secure, so you have nothing to worry about, and neither does your customer. So let's take a look at what we need to do to get started with hosted payment pages. The first thing you want to do is give us a call. We'll help you guys get set up with the hosted payment page. At a point, we'll contact CardPoint, get your information, get your custom URL, which customers will use to make payments on. Now, once we have that URL set up here, we'll take a look at Smart Service, and we'll go into our settings section. And there are a couple options we'll want to set up here to personalize this for your business. The first one would be the email invoice and email estimate tab in here. For those of you who have used our email job reminders feature before, you can basically use this to preset a message that would go out with any email that you send. Well, we've got that for our email invoices as well. So we can come in here and we can go ahead and build a merge template for what information we'd like shown to the customer, which we'll see here in a moment when we send them an email. Now, the way you fill these out is you type out your message just like I have here. But when you want something like this first name code to show up, you go ahead and put in these codes when you wanted to address the customer by name, or you want to bring up their address, or whatever you would like. So write out your message, and right after that, you would go ahead and right-click, and we have these merge options for you. So you select the information from that job or customer that you'd like to appear on their message. For example, I use the first name code here, which will put a space that will automatically pull their first name when we go to email them. We'll have the same feature available for your estimates as well, so you can set that one up. The last thing that we'll do here before we can go fully live with the CardPoint hosted payment page head over to the card point tab. In here, you'll go ahead and put in your credentials that were given to you by CardPoint, as well as your custom URL that you will have for your business. And if you'd like, we do also offer the option in here to collect a down payment on any estimates that you send out. So you can check this box and you can specify a default amount to be pulled on that estimate. This can be customized on a per estimate basis, however. So if you feel the need to collect, 50% on this job or something different, you have the option to change this on a per estimate basis. Lastly, before we leave this window, we'll go ahead and match up all of our payment methods here. When you look at the CardPoint page, which we'll take a look at here in a moment, they'll have options for things like American Express, Discover, MasterCard, Visa. You want to match those up to your entries in QuickBooks, so when I make that payment record for you in QuickBooks, we know how you took the payment. So once all of this is set up, we can go ahead and take a look at how this actually functions. Let's go ahead and head over to a job. And from this job record here, we have a brand new button at the top that says Send Invoice. So if I click on that option, it'll open up an email to our customer. You see we have a invoice.pdf attachment here. That'll be what the customer is going to see. And you see we also have our custom message which says pull Jessica's name into the message for us. That way it's addressing her by name or by whatever information we decide to include in our email. Now I have the option to click on this invoice.pdf to give it a preview. So let's take a look at what that looks like in here. So it'll look like our standard work order form. However, we do have this new Pay Now button. When the customer clicks on that, that's going to take them to your web page where they can go ahead and enter their card information. So if I go ahead and click on that option, that'll open up our new payment window. This will show the amount due at the top so the customer sees how much is due for this job. They can go ahead and enter in their card information as well as their contact information to verify, so we could go ahead and paste that in there to see everything. Once the customer's got that done, they'll go ahead and check the CAPTCHA here, and they'll hit their Submit Payment button, which will create a payment record back for you in Smart Service. Now, obviously, if we have all of our customers doing this, we're going to have quite a few payment records coming back to us, and we need a way to manage that. We've got a great option for that as well. Back in Smart Service, we've added a brand new window for you that's going to be under your Office section called Post Payments. This window will keep track of any payments that haven't been posted to QuickBooks yet, whether or not the job is active. So if you've already posted your invoice over to QuickBooks, no worries. The customer pays the next day, that's great. You can come in here. We can see any payments that haven't been posted to QuickBooks yet. On the left-hand side, you can see the job in question, so we could click on that to open up the history record or the job itself, depending on whether or not you've posted it. We can see the customer's payment information in here as well, and we can go ahead and hit the Post Payment to send that payment over to QuickBooks. So it'll create a payment record under that job for us, attached to that invoice. Another option here before we head into iFleet is on the customer level. Let's say you don't want to look through all of their previous jobs, something like that, to find which one has the payment, or if you need to resend that invoice and you don't want to find that inactive job, that's okay. If you head over to the history record for that job that you posted earlier, we have an option on each history record from this point forward that says Send Invoice. Now that'll open up that same email template and let you go ahead and get that invoice sent out to the customer, even if the job's been posted already. Alright, so now that we're over here in iFleet, let's go ahead and take a look at what's changed here. The first thing I'd like to show off is the new way that we've set up the process payment options for your iFleet technicians. The page itself has been redone. It's a little bit more streamlined now and easier to use. It'll be one solid form, so you'd fill out your customer's information, get their credit card number and all that. You also have your safe payment options in here, as well as your recurring button there. So we can go ahead and take a payment, decide whether this is going to be a payment method the customer would like to keep on file with us, and hit Submit to process that payment. The other option that's available for you here is if we want to use that new hosted payments page that you got set up, we can head over to our Finalize Job button, follow our normal procedure here to get this sent out to the customer. And if I take a look at the work order that we have in here now, we can see that when the customer receives their email, they'll get that big Pay Now button here. So they can go ahead and click on that, and that'll take them over to your hosted payments page where they can make their payments, the same page we just looked at for Smart Service. Another great option that we have built in here now is if you are on an estimate, let's say you want to collect a deposit for one of your estimates, we can go in, and when we go to finalize this estimate and get that sent out to the customer, of course we'll go through our terms and conditions, but right here when they go to sign, you see there's a minimum due, That minimum due is going to be the percentage that you specified back in Smart Service to collect as a down payment whenever you have an estimate. Of course, you do have the ability to tap in there and edit that amount, so if you need to collect a little bit more, a little bit less, that option's there. But if I go ahead and take a look at the estimate that we'd send our customer via email here, when they get it, they'll get that same Pay Now button, but there is something I do want to point out. So on the total amount here on the right-hand side, there is a payment total. That's what they've paid so far if there has been a payment. There is the total amount due. That's the total value of the estimate once all the work is done. And then there's just a total due section. That total due section is going to be the percentage that you tried to collect this time. So you might want to explain to the customers, the total is, the full value. The total due is what they're paying today, essentially. When they hit that Pay Now button, if they don't happen to notice that, that's still going to open up that Card Connect page. And it'll collect a payment for the amount that's due here. So we can see that that $28.50 is showing up. So if they don't notice the down payment portion there, it'll still make sure that they pay the correct amount when they go to click that button. All right, so there are a couple other enhancements that are more quality of life enhancements for you guys I did want to show off today. For those of you who are using our batch invoicing features in Smart Service, that's our way of saying we want to visit a customer weekly and maybe invoice them monthly. We do have some new options for you here. So if I go into a job and I go to change my invoicing style, you'll see that I have a new batch invoicing for customer option. So previously we had the batch invoicing for job and a batch invoicing for a customer location. And what that would do is if you had a location above your job, it would send the batch invoice to that location level, whatever was the record parent of the job essentially. Now, a lot of folks wanted the ability to batch to the customer record in general, not if they had a location. That way, if you have a customer with multiple locations, you can still get everything on one invoice in the end instead of an invoice per location essentially. So in here, we have the option to batch for that job. That'll put it to this specific job record in QuickBooks. If the job has a location, then you go ahead and hit this option. If you make this on a job that does not have a location in the middle between the customer, it'll still batch it to the customer, so it'll go to the record's immediate parent, essentially, whatever's right above the job. Or if you know that this one has a location in it and you want one invoice for all the locations for all the service you did that month, that's why we've invented this new batch for customer. So it'll skip the location level and go to the highest point, which will be that customer record. Another great option I'd like to show off for everybody here is going to be back in our post work orders screen. So let's take a look at post work orders back in the office. And when we have a list of jobs here in front of us, we have two new features in here. The first is a filter by job type. So if you want to filter to a specific type of service that you're offering, if you're looking to clear out all your repairs versus saving all your projects for someone else to review, you can filter the screen here. Another option is the option to select and deselect all of the jobs at once. Over here at the top left, you've got a check mark, and that'll select and deselect all of the options for you at once. That way, if you go to do the post all, it's only going to affect the options that you have checked. Another small but very powerful enhancement is going to be located in here under contact search. So back here in our contact search, we've added a column for your column customizer up here. If I open that up, you'll see that job type is now an option for you to customize your columns by. That's something that's been added new for you. So another little feature that we put in here is when you're looking at your jobs in contact search and you go into your column customizer, you do have a new column that you can select, and that's going to be our creation date column. That creation date is when the job has been created. So if you'd like to see that in your screen, you can easily select that, hit the arrow to copy it over into your selected columns view, and of course move that up and down so you can see it a little bit better. We'll go ahead and move this one to the top. And now if I save that, it'll show me when the job record was actually created. For those of you who use one-time items on any preventative maintenance jobs that you have, you'll notice that once you have a couple visits to that customer, those one-time items kind of build up in that list, right? So we've added a new convenience feature to help with that. If I go to a job that has some line items on it, you now have the ability to click the active and one-time labels. If I have all of these items set as one-time, and I click this box, it'll deselect all of the items. If I click on this, since those items are not one-time, I have the option to check them all, and it'll confirm that with me, making all of those one-time. And of course, if I want to inactivate them, we have the same options over here. We can uncheck all of those to go ahead and inactivate those items. So if you got a list of 20, 30 items in here, don't worry. You have this option to select and deselect everything, and then you can just click on the ones that you actually want. And our last item on the list today is for those of you who use the email job reminders function or the message job reminders function. If we head into our Office tab and take a look at this feature, let's go to email job reminders here. When we open up this window, you'll notice that sometimes you have customers that don't have an email on file, of course, but we still want to be able to send out these emails. Previously, if you did this, it would hit a point where it would stop sending those emails because it ran into a customer that didn't have anything. So to avoid that, or to help you find out who does and doesn't have an email in the future, we have an option here at the top of the screen for jobs with emails only. So if I check this box here, it would take away any job that doesn't have an email associated with it. That'll leave that as a remaining list, so the next time we go in and filter, we'll be able to say, okay, this customer doesn't have one, that customer doesn't have one. And of course, if you find a customer that has a wrong email or doesn't have an email at all, you can always click on the little pencil and exclamation mark over here to open up that record so you can go ahead and make that correction. All right, everybody, so that'll take care of the version 105 enhancements. If you'd like more information on our enhancements, please visit us at smartservice.com/updates for more information. We'll see you next time.